Alright guys, TouchGrub here back again today. Hope you're all enjoying your Sunday. Couple of big topics to discuss today. Yesterday, the CDL announced the entire schedule for the upcoming league. Effectively, we can see every single game that's going to be played in pool matches until the end of the season. So we're going to look through the schedule, and also the times, of course, is the important thing, especially for me and the rest of the fans here in UK and Europe. Deciding what time we're going to have to go to bed and whatever is an important factor. The website always shows times in local time, so today I'll only be able to show them from a GMT, but you guys can work out exactly how that plays in to your own time zones if you'd like to look it up, and of course all the relevant links will be down in the description box as always. The second topic which I wanted to go into first is, of course, as in the title, amateur teams in large part supposedly being better than a significant proportion of the pro teams. Some of the reasons for this and how much impact it will have on the upcoming season, and how disappointing it is to some degree for some of the players that aren't in the pro scene, you know, not getting this opportunity to compete against them in the franchise system, but we'll see whether that's good or bad over the course of the video. So like if you guys enjoy, I would greatly appreciate it always, as would the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe if you're new. Let's hop right into it. Swizz says, make sure to get to our home event. There's some surprises for the fans at the London Royal Ravens home series on February 8th to the 9th, where I will be, and we'll look through some of the scheduling for that in a few minutes time, but some surprises, thought that was kind of interesting. Rated tweets out this as well, related to, of course, the London team. Told there's a slide patch cancel on the 22nd, gets close to the 22nd, no timeline on the slide cancel patch. We talked a while ago now that apparently the slide cancel had been fixed. We talked about this, you know, at least the issue of the slide cancel in the game many times now here on the channel. Rated reckons that apparently there's no particular timeline. Wondering if Comp is ever going to patch this year, a week out from the league and still nothing. You know, bro, we legit haven't got a single update that improves the game for us. And we still aren't going to before Minnesota. So, not ideal from the professional perspective, but that's not really the main thing I wanted to go into today. Thought I'd run this past as well. So, Slasher says, never thought it would be possible, but somehow there's a subclass more IP than the Vector was in Ghost. Apparently, I even saw somewhere that some people are even, I think maybe Octane did a tweet, people are starting to use red dot on the MP5 and using that instead of their M4s, which really shows an issue with the game. I really go into some actual class setups, but this is what Slasher tweets out. So if you guys are still playing the game, this is what he is using at the current time, just for reference. So the FTAC collapsible stock, Merc foregrip, the 10mm auto ammunition, which is pretty much a staple, stipple grip tape, and sleight of hand, as well as the perk. So this is the class setup he's running that he reckons is pretty god tier. So if you guys are still playing the game, this I'd recommend giving it a go. Slasher does seem to know what he's doing. Few other things to mention as well. This has got a lot of discussion talking around the starting roster from Cronut CDL Intel here for the Toronto Ultra. This is going to be the 5-man squad. Looney and Methods, which I thought were the two staples. It was almost a guarantee. I felt that Looney was going to be there, and Methods, having been a consistent top AR for several years, I felt he was going to be there as well. Yes, they are indeed. The other three players, very interesting though. We have no Brack here, which is a very, you know, contentious thing. It just depends how the practice has been going. I believe Lando did a tweet that we'll look at saying, you know, I'm surprised to say that Brack isn't in the starting lineup, which makes sense, right? Obviously, he's a very talented young player. At the same time, a lot of people have leveled accusations of Brack, saying he's a bit of a kill whore. He doesn't necessarily play for the team. You've also got guys like Bance on the team. The decision to put Classic and Cami in is also very strange, and not necessarily strange, I'm not saying in that sense, but it's interesting at the least. And Metal's in the squad as well over Lucky. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes, what changes they will make going forward, because Bance is there lurking, Brack of course is there, and Classic, after his Black Ops 4 performances, you would have said, like, you know, why is this guy going to be in a starting roster? But he's a legendary player, right? And then maybe he's way more talented at this game than he was at Black Ops 4. That's definitely arguable, and Cami's a pretty disgusting player on his own, right, in my opinion. And Metal's in there instead of Lucky. You know, Lucky, we do know him as that fantastic sniper, so it's possible they might substitute him in for some search and destroy stuff. We'll have to see how that goes, but yeah, I wanted to go through this. That's going to be the 5-man starting roster they're going to be using at Minnesota, so pretty big deal. And also we have the Paris starting lineup being Luca, Den, Shock, Zach Zedenya, and Kismet. So no Phantoms right now, and who's the other guy? Breezy, of course, which is very interesting given that he's the French guy on the team. He's the French representation. No sign of him on the starting lineup. I thought they would maybe put him in there just for the sake of trying to appease the Paris French fans. I guess they're going to make the best team possible, which of course also makes sense. This is the tweet I wanted to go through then from Christopher Duarte Parasite. Hot take: for the current top challenger teams are better and have more hours than some of, if not 50% of the current CDL team. So there's 12 teams in the CDL. some of them we know are going to be the best teams in the game. The Atlanta FaZe, the Dallas Empire, the Chicago Huntsmen are pretty unequivocally in most people's rankings the top 3. Then you've got the Subliners around there. We'd like to, or at least I'd like to think that London are in and around there somewhere, but there's many other top teams that we can talk about. The question is, which of the teams at the bottom end could potentially be beaten by amateur teams? In the past, we've seen events where amateur teams will come along, they'll have 5-team groups where you'll have the amateur bracket, and then the top 4 teams from the amateur bracket will slot into the pool play, and then they'll compete against the pros and have a chance. I didn't necessarily like that, because most of the time those amateur teams, after having played so much Call of Duty and been knackered, they're just getting smacked on Saturday morning by the pro teams. No one really wants to see that. I kind of liked how it was in Black Ops 4. At the same time, it is nice, it would be nice for the amateur teams to have an opportunity to compete against the CDL teams. And of course, the big question really here is, what motivation do the CDL teams have, now they're guaranteed a salary, to really grind super hard? The guys on the amateur scene, like Parasite and the rest of his squad, in an ideal world, they're going to get picked up by a professional team. They're going to get a proper salary. They're going to be in the pro league. Of course, I've talked about the idea of kill whoring, that some individuals might play for themselves rather than a team with the opportunity to get picked up. We remember Robbie Beaming, I think, dropping like a 1.3 on the Nation of Power team, I think it was, at the PLQ, where they lost every single series, but he had like a 1.3 and then he got picked up onto Accelerate. That's an issue that you may see with some of the lower tier amateur teams. I definitely expect that to materialize this season. About Parasite's team, experienced players, maybe you wouldn't see that to the same degree. They're playing for the win, but they have much more incentive to try hard and try and be good, get picked up by a big organization, win, of course, a lot of money, whereas at the current time, the pro teams, they're guaranteed the salary, which is a big issue, I guess, to some degree. And it's, I guess, somewhat frustrating that we don't get to see the likes of the Parasite's team competing up against the Paris Legion and other teams that aren't expected to be so good. So this is one, for example, no lie, if I was a pro, I'd feel no pressure about really scrimming or anything like that until the season starts, because they have the luxury of being locked in and being contracted. Not outrageous to say some AM teams should be in the league based on skill at this particular point in time. If it was straight skill, I imagine there's at least 1 or 2 amateur teams right at the top vicinity, like UYU have been up there. Some of the academy rosters as well apparently been pretty good. Let's not forget also that the Dallas Empire and some other top pro teams and Atlanta FaZe, as we talked about recently with that 94-1 win streak, have been playing a lot of the amateur teams. And they're not just playing the amateur teams for the sake of it, they're playing the amateur teams to some degree because they don't want to play against the pro teams and give away ideas and strategies, I guess, especially if they're playing up against them in this first weekend at Minnesota. But they're also playing against them because it's the best practice. It's not a ridiculous thing to say that Parasite's team is better than some of the pro league teams and provides better practice for the likes of Atlanta FaZe and Dallas Empire to practice up against than some of the other pro teams. There's definitely some examples there, and also that means that the amateur teams themselves keep getting better and become more competitive. So, yeah, some interesting things. The teams being locked is the dumbest thing about the CDL. Makes league players lazy and not feared that they will be dropped. Not sure I necessarily agree with this, because you do have substitutes on the bench, joggling for position now, which is obviously an interesting point as well. If you're on the starting roster, you've got, especially Toronto Ultra, right? I like the way that they have a 10-man squad. You've got Bant, you've got, Brack nipping at your heels constantly if you start to underperform to get subbed in for you. That's one thing to consider. And also this then from Clayster. So he said this on the subreddit. I'd say there's at least 4 challenger teams better than 50% of franchise teams. That's pretty insane, right? To think that half of the franchise teams, that's 6 franchise teams, Clay reckons there's 4 challenger squads, Renegades included, which is pretty insane that Clayster can even consider Renegades, given that they're the Australian team that keeps winning all the 2Ks. Who really knows how good they are? But Clayster making a pretty standout statement here. Paris, LAG, Toronto, London, LAOG, and Florida, Seattle. Who exactly knows where they will line up? I imagine Paris is there. I imagine a lot of people consider LA, Gorillas not to be so good. The LA OpTic team, as Reddit user number 1776 says here, like LA OpTic at the end of the season, or at least mid-season, they've got to be a solid team. Like, there's no way these guys are going to be a poor team forever. But still, some of the teams are apparently not going to be as good as a lot of the amateur squads. Intriguing concept. Be intrigued to hear your thoughts on that down in the comment section below. Before we finish then, let's go through this. So this is on the Call of Duty League website, the entire schedule. Let's go through some of the dates and times. So this is the opening weekend here in Minnesota that you guys can see on screen right now. Friday, January the 24th. in just a few days' time this Friday. This is my time, so 10:30 p.m, 11:45 p.m. in GMT, so that means Eastern time, that's 5:30 p.m, and Pacific time, that's 2:30 p.m, and you guys can add an hour if you're in Central European time, or wherever you happen to be in the world. It's kicking off with Chicago-Dallas, that's a spicy matchup. Seattle, Florida as well, kind of battle of the sea gods in a way. And so yeah, 1 a.m. match here. It's obviously not ideal being in the UK, but I've seen times worse than this in the past, so it's not too bad. But yeah, these are some of the matches on the first day: Los Angeles Guerrillas, Minnesota, New York, London, etc, etc. And then you've got this on the Sunday. So these are all the matches going on the weekend, by the way. I think every team plays 2 games, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then you've got 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 series total throughout the weekend. This match here at 12:30 a.m. on the Sunday is actually played on Saturday if you're in the States. This is just early morning Sunday. It begins, expected to finish probably around 2 a.m. Not tragic, could be worse. And yeah, so these are the matches on Sunday. Unfortunately, the final match finishes pretty damn late here. But again, these are almost like LAN scrims in a way, because they count towards the league, but there's no overall winner at the end of the weekend. This is kind of just a test run to see how things are going and how the teams are matching up. Every team should play 2 matches on the weekend at all the times, as you can see on screen. This is what we're looking at in London then, just to go through this for you guys. So pretty interesting stuff here. We've got Saturday, February the 8th, 12:45 p.m. Dallas, Seattle. The 2 matches confirmed so far in the groups, and then it depends on who wins these as to who goes on and plays each other. So for example, if Dallas and Chicago win, they'll play each other. The winner of that will go through to the 4-team bracket to determine the champion. It's a GSL win 2 before you lose 2 kind of format to go through. This is what Group A looks like then. So pretty cool, the fact that the final 2 teams, I guess, in Group A will be determined, or at least the team that will go home in Group A will be determined by Saturday, or the first team that will go home, and then you'll have the final match to qualify on the Sunday afternoon, I guess, to get into the grand finals, or not the grand finals, but the final bracket that leads up to the grand finals, if you want to consider it from that perspective. And then you've got the same thing in Group E with similar time frames, and then you've got the final. So the final in the UK is going to start at 5 p.m. Local time. Not too bad. I mean, it'll finish at like 6:30, something like that. That's pretty early going, to be honest, for a typical event. And just to compare that then to the Atlanta event, which we looked at here. So yeah, Group A, Saturday, February 22nd, London versus Florida, Atlanta versus OpTic. These are the timings from a UK perspective. So of course, starting later in the UK. And there's a match even here at 1:15 a.m. on the Sunday morning, which will finish at like almost 3 a.m. Not ideal, but it depends on the time zones at how exactly what happens here. And it also could be worse, because when we look at this compared to Group B, we have a similar sort of time frame with, of course, the final match. So effectively, they'll play against each other. Then the winners will play the winners. The winner will then go through to the final 4-team bracket. The loser will play the loser. The loser of that will go home. And then the final 2 teams that remain at 1-1 in the group, they'll play each other on the Sunday morning or the Sunday afternoon, depending on how the case may be, to get through to the final 4-team bracket. Then they'll play single elimination to determine the winner of the weekend. So a decent format on the whole. This honestly isn't too bad for Atlanta. The finals will be played at 10 p.m. UK time, meaning they should finish about 11:30, which isn't too bad, to be honest, from a UK perspective, at least for the championship match, even though it's not really a championship. We talked about that a few days ago. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Leave your thoughts down below on the topics I discussed. The league is starting very, very soon indeed. Thanks for watching as always. I'll see you next time.